What's happening, family?
Hello.
Good to see you. Blair.
Hey, buddy. Been a while.
Yeah, my emails are going to the wrong email address for you now, I think.
It's okay. Part of it was just been crazy for me, so glad to finally be able to get back in the fold.
Yeah, dude. It's good to see you. You and I are due for some deep dive conversation to talk about the mysteries of the universe.
Would love to.
Jim, good to see you, brother.
Nice to see you. Nice to be seen.
Yeah, man. Greg, my guy.
Howdy.
Carol, I was so happy when you asked if you could bring uh is Corey with you?
It's Korai, and
Oh,
yeah,
Corey.
thank you so much. I'll let him introduce himself. He's my just I love having interns who are interested in the back end of our industry and not just, reporting or editing. So every year I get somebody from CC, and I'm really grateful.
All right. Karai, you're gonna actually get, so I'm gonna put you in the hot seat in a little bit once everybody's here and once we get started. I'll ask you a couple things. I'll ask you what your mission is and what you're passionate about. Those are the two. So your name and a little bit about yourself, and then mission and passion. We'll go super deep, super fast. That's how we roll around here. Dr. Fou, Augustine. Good
Howdy,
to see you,
Johnny.
Hey, it's good to see you, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, is it all right if so I'm gonna have you do intro too today, but is it all right if I let you kind of take everybody's pretty interested in what you're doing and talking about. So is it all right if I give you like a little extended time to talk about?
Of course, happy to share.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna give Augustine a little bit extra. You see, I'm really working on teaching myself. I'm
All
defaulting to a
right, you
different
got it.
pronunciation.
You
I'm
got it
working on
right.
Augustine. Yeah. So we'll get you some time. John Garrett, why you get off the screen, bro? I was just getting filling my eyes with your beauty, man. And then you just got to kill the camera. What's up with that? Um, all right. We've got Jason here. Dude, always good to see you, Jason.
Hey, sorry. That was my fault.
You have the angelic lights like right behind your head, dude. And I'm over here just
It's just all it is hold on. Is this? There we go. Is that a little better?
still looking
I'm a
angelic.
mess. I'm eating. Are we allowed to eat on Zooms these days? I don't know what etiquette. But I'm a mess today. Sorry, Johnny. But I'm excited to be on this call.
Dude, we get to do all the things now on Zoom. We get to eat. We get to have our kids like just come into the door behind us and start interacting. We could do all those things now. Everybody's fine with it. All right, I think I'm just going to get started then. I see Jake is here, and that was Jake was going to be one of my cues. So we'll just get started for today. We've got another 57 minutes of action-packed data nerdness to indulge into. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with introductions. I don't really have any housekeeping today. I think everything's kind of just rolling the way it needs to. I'm loving what I'm seeing. I'm loving some of the things that are coming out of this group, some of the initiatives and the partnerships and the collaborations. It's just bringing me no end of delight. So I'm going to go ahead and let Carol. Maybe I'll let you do a quick intro of context for Korai, and then Korai, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. So every spring, and maybe I can up the ante to include summer and fall also, I get an intern from Colorado College. They don't have a journalism program per se, but they have it as a minor. And one of the things I really appreciate, they have a professor there by the name of Corey Hutchins. I think he's pretty well known nationally. Some of you might receive his newsletter. That's kind of on the inside, behind the scenes of media, certainly in Colorado and a little bit broader as well. But I partner with Corey Hutchins every year and get an intern who doesn't necessarily want to be a reporter or an editor, or a video producer. and but somebody who's interested in the business and operations of media, and that really excites me to have, youth who want to see the back end and kind of how the soup is made in our profession. And so this spring I have Karai Gates, who I messaged Johnny and said, hey, can Karai jump in and see all of you and just listen and learn? And so Karai, thanks for being here.
Yeah, hi y'all. My name's Korai. Thanks for letting me join your meeting today. I've heard a little bit about this collaborative from Carol, so I'm really excited to just listen in. But I'm a senior at Colorado College, political science major, and doing the journalism minor, so really thankful to Carol for kind of having me along for a little bit here. Um, yeah, I guess to answer your two questions, Johnny, I'm passionate about helping people get involved in the community at CC, been part of student government and, um, court watching club and spent a lot of time kind of learning about Colorado Springs and creating relationships with folks in the community. And I guess my mission at this point in life is just to keep learning. Still pretty young, and so there's just so much to learn and
Yeah.
kind of have a beneficial impact on others. So yeah, thanks again.
I've got one
Oh,
follow up for you. So first of all, welcome. It's actually really it's deeply refreshing to see you and to see your passion to learn. And I know everybody here has some deep roots inside the industry, and to see somebody up and coming and just curious is magical, I think, for people. And so where did you so you're interested in the biz ops side of media?
mhm.
How did you come by that interest? What sparked that?
Well, it was actually through a class that I took with Corey Hutchins, who Carol mentioned earlier. It was called The Future and Sustainability of Local News.
Mm,
And, we covered a lot in that 3.5 weeks. We met with a lot of local news organizations, and that kind of really got me into, since there was a lot of talk about like how can we sustain local news in the future. Ad revenues obviously have changed and all that kind of stuff. And so that really got me interested in the business side of how to make local news work, in the modern day. And so then Carol, I was connected with Carol because of that class, and here we are.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then just so you know, this invitation is perpetual. So if you find this to be useful and you want to come back, then it's not like a special like day ticket. This isn't a day pass. You can come back if you find it to be useful in the future as well.
Thank you.
On your
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So then the main event, Augustine Fou, Dr. Fou, is gonna jump. He told me. I said, well, what do I call you? Do I call you Augustine? Is what I said. I said, do I call you Augustine or do I call you Dr. Fou? And he's like, no, don't call me Dr. Fou. That's my moniker. So yeah, Augustine, I'd love for you to answer the same questions. Introduce yourself, maybe a little bit of origin story, and then mission and passion. And then I'll ask more questions after that.
All right. Thanks everyone for having me today. I've been in digital marketing since pretty much the beginning. So I left McKinsey in early '96 and got into the trenches of digital, so to speak. And all that's here in New York, in Silicon Alley. And back then we still had to convince clients they needed a website. So fast forward almost 30 years now. I've seen the entire arc of the evolution of digital. And kind of to tie with Karai's point, we've seen a lot of local news publishers struggle in recent years, and that's because the money and the ad dollars have been flowing away from them. So part of what I'm doing these days, I have a platform called Fou Analytics. I serve large advertisers who are finally more curious about their media and where their ad dollars are actually going. Um, and so I'm also very interested in helping publishers. I try to do whatever I can to help publishers educate the ad buyers that one of the most important things to do in advertising is to show your ads to humans.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have seen in that email thread the chart from Kenny's
Mm-hmm.
website, Broad Street. So blue means humans, red means bots, and they have a lot of humans. But sadly, in programmatic media buying, humans are very significantly undervalued, right? So a lot of the large advertisers are just going for as much quantity as possible and as low CPM prices as possible. And that's actually doing a huge disservice to publishers, to the point where the pointer stat from a few years ago is that 1,500 local news sites have gone out of business in the last 20 years. And into that vacuum, we now see a lot of completely fake news sites, complete disinformation sites, a lot of them created by foreign actors that are basically polluting the information that humans get to read. So if we can solve ad revenues for local news publishers, we can start to turn that around.
Love it, man. All right. So I asked you a little bit of this when we met. You know, we got to meet, was it yesterday or the day before? We had a good meeting, got to dig in deep together. You know, I do want you to give a sense for where your passion comes from for this, right? Like your sense of passion and then your sense of mission, because this is what you do. This is all that you do, right? This is your
Yep,
this
that's my
is
day job.
your vocation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't mean all that you do, but this is your vocation.
yeah.
And so, yeah, tell us a little bit more about the drive.
Well, it started when I was still at Omnicom. We were serving a lot of pharma and healthcare clients, and we were noticing strange things just in the search, paid search campaigns, like 200% click-through rates. And the clicks kept coming after the campaign was over. So, what the heck was going on?
Yeah.
At that time, no one could really explain it to me. So I left Omnicom and started a set of technologies to help me audit campaigns. So basically, I would use the tech to put into the campaigns or put on the websites of clients and then help them audit their campaigns and figure out what was going on. Long story short, I'm sure all of you have heard of bots and ad fraud. So basically, bad guys are setting up fake websites and trying to sell ads to them. But because those fake websites have no human audiences, they have to use bots or software programs to just repeatedly load the web pages. And that's what generates the ad inventory that then they sell through programmatic exchanges. So prior to 2012, 2013, when programmatic exchanges took hold as the primary or dominant form of media buying, when the advertisers got to sit across the table from a real publisher, a seller, they could actually verify it was a real company, it was a real publisher. But in the ad exchanges, you don't really get to see who you're buying the ads from, right? It's all mixed in there, and every ad impression is bought at auction. So now you have the largest of advertisers spending hundreds of millions of dollars on sites they've never seen before. So with the advent of ad exchanges, that basically created a giant loophole for the bad guys to now create hundreds of thousands of fake sites just using WordPress templates. And then they would add it into the exchange and they would start siphoning money away from the largest of advertisers. So that started, like 2010, 2011, so 15 years ago.
Seriously, that long? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's been around for a while, but when programmatic media buying became the dominant form of media buying, that's when everything just went south and the fraud proliferated. And I can also share a story. I used to work with medical publishers, and they were significantly harmed by this. And let me explain why. So, New England Journal of Medicine or Journal of Clinical Oncology is a better example. They basically used to sell on a share of voice basis because they know every oncologist in North America would visit JCO, Journal of Clinical Oncology. So back then, if they sold ads on that site to two pharma advertisers, each of them would have 50% share of voice. And that was great. Now, over the years, the media agencies that serve the big pharma companies, the advertisers, basically forced the publishers to change from a share of voice model to a CPM model because they said, oh, well, everyone else is on a CPM model, so you have to as well. So when they agreed to change the model to CPM, they basically got killed. The reason
Mm,
for that is doctors don't generate a lot of page views, right? So when they go to a journal like JCO, they read an article and leave. So probably they
mhm.
generate 2 or 3 page views. That's not enough page views to generate the volumes of impressions that people expected. So then when you take the dollars and divide it by the number of impressions, it looked like a $3,500 CPM. So then the agencies used that against them and said, oh, well, we're getting stuff over here for $35. Why are we paying you $3,500, right? So they started pressuring them on the CPM as well. So
Wow.
basically, for vertical magazines, publishers, and also local news, They just didn't generate enough volume of page views to be able to sell successfully on a CPM basis. So in that case, because they were forced to change the business model, they also saw their revenue get decimated, right? Because they were being forced down on CPM, and they really couldn't compete against the fraudulent sites who can sell ads profitably for 30-cent CPMs, right? So
Yeah.
all of that, became what we've kind of witnessed over the last 15 years in terms of the harm that has come to publishers due to programmatic advertising.
And would you say then that that same harm is what's happening on a smaller scale to all different kinds of local media brands and the other brands? Like it's the
Yeah,
same.
to
That
the point
illustrates the
where
pattern. Yeah.
yeah, they're completely out of business, right?
Yeah.
Because the advertisers are looking for 10-cent CPMs or dollar CPMs. That's not nearly enough for any publisher who has to actually spend money to create content to actually live on, right? So it's basically an unfair fight. They just can't compete against the fake sites. And most of the fake site, it's kind of a deadly cycle, right? So the fake sites, where the heck do they even get their content?
I see you,
Have
Jim, by the way.
crawlers. Was that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I told Jim I see him. Go ahead.
Um, yeah, so the crawlers are basically the bots are crawling the publisher sites and stealing their content, and they're just remixing it on the fake sites. So the
Mhm.
fake sites don't have cost of content. They steal everything, including the images. I mean, we have countless years of proof where the images like of Princess Kate and whatever, it's all plagiarized from Getty, right? They even link to the Getty site where you can license the image. So anyway, all the content, all the images are completely plagiarized. And when the ads run on those sites, every dollar that's spent on those sites is a dollar that's been taken away from legitimate publishers.
Mhm. It's crazy. So at this point, I'm gonna do a little different because the amount of I'm kind of bringing you in as a new guest into the meeting, but then also as a subject matter expert on this particular topic. And so I'm going to kind of open it up for people to ask you questions. And this is kind of how we roll. I kind of assembled this thing, and it's outgrown me. Like as far as I come and try to facilitate it, but there's a lot of people on this conversation that are way smarter about things, their areas of genius than I am. And so it tends to be pretty organic. And so we're going to just have organic conversation around this. And then at some point, I'll move us on to the next thing. But I've got a lot of time set aside for this and for questions. So Jim, you had your hand raised. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I'd never heard of um, I'd never heard share of voice as being a measure. Okay, and you mentioned that in the Journal of Oncology, if an ad appeared there, they were guaranteed 50% share of voice. I don't understand that at all. Why would they be guaranteed that? And what is share of voice? I understand CPM, but I don't understand share of voice. Sorry about that.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So for certain medical journals, JCO is the best example. Journal of Clinical Oncology is where all of the oncologists in North America, they always visit that site. So they're reading up on topics of oncology. Those are typically medical papers and things like that. So I think there's about 8,500 oncologists in North America. So literally all of them go to that site. So if you're a pharmaceutical advertiser and you had an oncology product that you want to get in front of those oncologists, you would want to advertise on that magazine's website, the digital version, right? Obviously, they have the print version as well. So share of voice just means you can reach those people, those 8,500 oncologists. And if there's one advertiser, you would get 100% share of voice, which is meaning you can reach all of them. Um, Meaning every ad slot and every ad impression is going to be your ad impression shown to those 8,500 oncologists. If there are two advertisers, they would basically rotate, swap their ads one after the other. And so they would get half of the impressions. So in essence, there's no guarantee needed. It's just the fact that oncologists go to JCO. That's it. But over the years, the ad tech companies have said, oh, well, we can help you reach oncologists for much, much cheaper if you advertise on these other sites. And they use the whole concept of cookie targeting to say, oh, well, if it's this cookie, we think it's this oncologist. So when they show up on usatoday.com, we can still show them an ad, but it only costs you $3 CPMs and not 3,500. So that actually attracted a lot of the dollars away from these publishers because the advertisers who were served, these big pharma companies are always served by agencies, media buying agencies. And the agency's top priority is to get as many ad impressions as possible for as cheap a price as possible. So now when they say, oh, wow, we can reach oncologists over here for 1/1000th the cost, they shifted their dollars away. So that's what caused harm to the publishers.
And are you an advocate of that? So I think Augustine, I'll ask the follow-on question. Are you an advocate of share of voice, or is
We're
that really just
rational.
irrelevant?
Yeah, so if it's like a vertical publication like Journal of Clinical Oncology and literally every oncologist goes there, that makes a ton of sense. If it's a general population type thing, like a CNN or whatever, it doesn't make sense. It make that much sense. However, for those publishers like CNN, it's better if they can actually sell more directly and cut out the middlemen. So this was
Mhm.
what we talked about before, where a lot of publishers are leaving 90% on the table because they actually don't know what CPM the advertisers are bidding, right? So
Mhm.
the advertisers could be paying a $15 CPM, but the publisher might only be getting $1.50 out of that
Right.
because there's so many middlemen taking their cuts, and those fund the pockets of the middlemen, not the publisher.
Awesome. All right, John, you're next. Yeah, John's next.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. Am I okay? Good. So, hey, great work. One of my goals in before I die is that we're working on kind of we're a group of print publications, but we have some digital products too, website, email newsletters, that kind of thing. And one of the things I'm working on that's really related to this is, we feel like brand performance marketing is the future. So I'm trying to build tools to measure for our customers brand lift that comes from, typical display ads, but also we have to demonstrate performance. So on the digital tools, which are a little bit easier to measure, we've been building a ton of tools on tracking. And I guess my question is kind of two-pronged because number one, what I'm learning as I dig into this. So we don't sell programmatic on our website, but we do sell programmatic to our customers as part of a package deal. Um, and I'm learning how big of a bot problem there is because we're really tracking it for one of our customers. The numbers just don't make sense. And so my first question is, as we track that and we hold ourselves accountable to the client, right, who's pretty sophisticated direct response marketer, they're watching landing pages, trying to catch leads, that kind of thing, and we're showing them on our site, 50 clicks, but on programmatic, 300 clicks or whatever, right, for that same type of campaign. They're measuring it up against their own data, so they're paying attention to their own pipeline and where it comes from.
Mhm.
And so what's good about that is, it creates accountability, right? It helps us, figure out how we're helping them grow their pipeline. And the QR code is a very good gift to print publishers to get into the pipeline if we start helping our customers understand how that works. So my first question is how do these sites justify these marketing agencies, right, who are selling these programmatic, right? How do they justify performance if they are all, mostly bots? Like, how are they justifying performance to the client? Because my hunch is that it's a rigged system, and because of cookies, they basically get to take credit for every lead they get. It's kind of my
Yep.
hunch.
Yeah,
And
you're right. Your hunch is right. So back in 2013, I was working with university marketers, and they regularly had to discard 50 to 70% of the leads they got because they were all fake. Okay. Now, the bad guys will use bots to complete lead forms, and these days, all of the content in the leads are 100% accurate because there's been all these data breaches. And furthermore, the high schoolers will volunteer every piece of information you need, right? First name, last name, home address, grandma's name, pet's name, everything, right? High school mascot. So every bit of information they already have. So when they complete the lead form, everything's going to be correct. And then when the university calls up the student, they'll say, we never applied to your college, right? So that's how the
Mm.
bots can actually generate leads when they know the revenue model is cost per lead. Okay.
yeah,
So
so So, I mean, this is the opportunity for publishers because, like, I think that's what you're getting at. The traffic is, generally speaking. I mean, I do want to know how I can get you to check my traffic, but the traffic is generally speaking better on a local news site. We're just not asking. Well, when we get on a programmatic site, we're basically leaving a ton of money on the table. But my other question related to all that is um, is if 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 you're right, which I do believe you're right, but because you're looking at data, I just guess I want to ask you if I'm thinking about this correctly. One of my integrity problems of selling programmatic portions outside of our site, and what we do basically is we sell like as a package, we'll sell $180 for 25,000 impressions or something like that. And they go out on, we use a company called Awarity that basically put geofences it onto, into a programmatic network.
Yeah, I got you.
And I'm seeing the clicks sound like crazy. So I'd love to figure out how to measure that. But I guess my next question for you is from an integrity standpoint, if I'm selling those CPMs at, $5 a CPM and the Awarity's charging me $3.50 a CPM, like outside of the bots alone, like what is the advertiser actually getting, right? Is it a
Yeah, so
yeah, go ahead.
we can easily measure that and answer that question with data. So you can put my in ad tag. So Fou Analytics is my analytics platform for ads. There's an in ad tag that we can put in the ads to see where they went and whether they even ran at all. Because what I'm seeing recently is that 50 to 80% of the ads never even rendered. Okay, so that's a whole other issue.
Oh gosh.
And then on top of that, you want to put an on-site tag on the advertiser's landing page, specifically the form where they fill out the lead. Okay, so there's some very common sense things. If you see the form fill and the submit button clicked within 1 second, a human can't complete a form in 1 second, right? It would usually take them a few minutes to fill out that form and press it. On top of that, if you see the form fill and get submitted with no click, no mouse movement, no, you have to actually click your cursor into a text box before you can start typing. If you see none of those things, that means the bot just submitted the form complete with, 100% correct information. So in those cases, we can then inform the advertiser who's buying those leads, you should just discard all these leads because they were not even submitted in a way that a human could possibly do. Okay. So there's two ways to verify that. You can help show the advertiser that the leads that they're getting may not be legit, right? So maybe they'd also have to discard 50 to 80% of them. And then when you're selling those programmatic ads, they're probably using some kind of a DSP to buy them. So if it's display or video, we can put an in ad tag in there to see, first of all, where the ads went and whether they rendered at all, right? Because everything can be faked. The clicks can be faked by the bots. So if they didn't run any ads, they can still fake the click. This was what I mentioned at the beginning. For my pharmaceutical clients, the clicks kept coming even though the campaign was over. So there were no ads to be clicked on. But as long as you have that click-through URL, you can just have a bot repeatedly load that, right, to make it look like there's a whole bunch of clicks. So that's why we have to measure whether those clicks are from bots. And then ultimately, if they're getting leads, whether those leads were submitted in a way that a human could possibly do, right? So there's multiple layers we can actually measure for you.
Sorry, I'll stop asking questions, Johnny, I promise. But so do you charge is it like a monthly fee? Like how do we get, regular data to our teams and
Yeah, you log into a dashboard just like you log into Google Analytics. And I have a self-serve version of this that's meant for websites. So you're welcome to just use that at no cost. So my primary customers are the large advertisers that do 1 billion impressions or more. So in this case, if it's a relatively low volume, you're welcome to use that and I'll help you with the interpretation.
Thank you.
Good stuff, man. Let's see. So I'm going to go straight to Blair. Blair, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, this is so fascinating to me, and I've been a big proponent of share of voice advertising. I used to be a publisher, and especially in the early days when my excuse me, although I had hyper local traffic, the numbers were huge, and so share of voice made complete sense. And I was curious. I still believe that local publishers still have a really good opportunity to sell on a share of voice model, because I believe in direct sell. I think programmatic can be a race to the bottom very quickly. So I'm curious how you feel like is the best way for those publishers to position themselves, given that, you're basically selling an idea, hey, I've got a quality audience, even though it's a lot maybe smaller. There's not bots, it's humans, it's super local. So how do you recommend that publishers use that value proposition in today's environment?
Yeah, I think we still have to educate the buyers that human is very important, because for the last 15 years, they've kind of ignored that conveniently. So they
Totally.
were just going for large volume and low prices. But you might have seen that article I put in the email with Kenny, where we have measurement on publisher sites, and the majority of it is dark blue. So over time, what we need to do is educate the advertisers that what's most important is to get your ad in front of humans, right? That's kind of the first and most important thing, even before targeting and anything else, right? Because if your ad's not shown to a human, it can't have an effect. Okay. So for the publishers that have Fou Analytics on their site, they can actually screenshot from their dashboard to say, okay, we can show that we have 80, 90% dark blue. And because of that, you should pay a higher CPM than the crap that you're getting from open exchanges. And then to kind of piggyback on John's point earlier, if we now measure the ads that are going to programmatic exchanges and we can show them that 90% of it's red, then they can say, okay, even if it's a 30-cent CPM, most of it's going to bots anyway. It cannot have an impact for us. So over time, they'll say, okay, let me start pulling back the dollars that we're wasting, right? They're buying lots of volume at cheap prices. Might as well buy less volume and pay higher CPMs to local publishers and then actually get an outcome from that, right? So that's how we can, I mean, it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, because we have to help them unlearn 15 years of bad habits, right? So, but I think some of the local advertisers the people that you sell to, I think they'll start coming around sooner, because to me, small business owners, if they spend $200 on digital advertising and it doesn't actually drive a return, they can't spend the next $200, right? Whereas the big giant advertisers like P&G and Unilever, P&G has $2 billion they have to spend. So even though there's not enough humans in North America to absorb all of those ad impressions, they tell their agency, right? They put a goal. You have to help me spend it all, because the CMO, their job depends on them spending the entire budget, because they're afraid they won't get as much next year. So I think that the incentives are different in terms of the local advertisers that you sell to. So I think if we can actually show them some of this data, it'll start educating them so that they'll say, okay, it's better if we buy fewer impressions, pay higher CPMs, and then I think we're going to actually start seeing better outcomes than what we're doing right now.
Awesome. Blair, any follow-ups on that?
No, not really. I mean, it's great. I 100% agree. I think the challenging part is just like you said, it's just the education process. It feels very much like when social media first burst on the scene, and everybody was so hot, and it was just like, oh, and so many dollars got shifted. And I mean, a little bit different. And I think it's obviously a much bigger problem now. But I 100% agree with you and what you're saying. I think that education process is challenging, but I think it kind of has to happen. So great work and love what you're doing.
The problem is that Google, the difference between this and social media is Google's in on it.
Mm-hmm.
So like Facebook and Meta, like they were just kind of, just doing their thing. But the reason why Google's in on it is because they're gathering the cookies that are demonstrating the success of the campaign that every single advertising agency is using to credit the direct sales process that really had nothing to do with the campaign in the first place. And why is Google in on it? Because those ad agencies are buying Google ads, and it's all connected. The more that they can do this, like song and dance about cookies and deliverability and accountability, the more money the agencies make, the more money that Google makes. That's I think a little bit of the difference between that and social. Not that social media wasn't engineering their data wrong, but
Sure.
this feels a little bit more like a conspiracy than than just having a product that is, questionable about the results.
Yeah, and John, we can take this offline a little bit more, but I want to put this on your radar. Um, I've been studying the problem of attribution fraud lately. So that's where the ad tech companies are claiming credit for organic sales, meaning sales that would have happened anyway. So when I know you're trying to do the right thing and say we want to attribute sales to certain ad activities and things like that. The problem with that is that there's going to be too few actual sales that come from ad exposure, right? So it may be too much of a stretch for someone who's an upstanding citizen like you to actually say, let's get judged on performance, because you can't compete against the cheaters who are basically claiming credit for all of the organic sales, right? Your stuff is just not going to look that good. So it's really about educating the advertisers that their first priority is showing ads to humans. There are too many variables between the ad exposure and the ultimate purchase or sale for you to take responsibility for that, right? There's just too many things, like the nature of the product, the industry, how far you have to drive to get to that particular advertiser's location, whether it's a restaurant or a barbershop. So there's too many factors that you can't control for to even be willing to take the responsibility for the ultimate outcome of the advertiser. Um, what's happening
Can
in
I,
digital
can
is
I,
that they're just claiming credit using, like you said, those ROAS reporting, right? So
yeah.
you won't be able to compete against the cheaters.
Okay, let me push back on you a little bit,
Okay.
because I one of the things I thought of when you were started presenting is I so admired how you basically said this is BS. I quit. I'm gonna find out how to find out if somebody's a fraud or not. And listen, what you did was really hard. Like digging into like what flags or whatever, like what you've done to break down like whether or not somebody's fraud is really hard. And you were solving a hard problem. I think the only way that traditional media can prove the value of their reader is if we push hard into figuring this out with integrity. The cheater piece, let's be just it's easy. It's easier for a publisher to use the clicks that I get from my third party programmatic company to demonstrate value to the client than to actually work hard on
Yep.
understanding how does brand lift work. So
Mm.
like, for example, uh, one thing that we're working on is connecting to Google Analytics, uh, to the customers, Google Analytics based on in-home dates of publication, right? So that's a spike. If they get a spike when the publication goes out, that's demonstration of brand lift, right? That's one way. I think QR codes are another way. And there was a question on here, and we are seeing scans, especially when the client is willing to give better offers to the customers. We are seeing a lift of scans that leads to a landing page that creates leads. And we have to sell the whole, like, we have to figure out the whole, what's the old saying, 50% of my advertising doesn't work. I just don't know which one it is or whatever. Like, we have to figure that out. Like, we have to do the hard work that you did, what you've done,
Yeah,
to do a
I,
better
I agree with that.
job.
I agree with that. I'm gonna just continue looking at it from the fraud investigator point of view, because we measured the Super Bowl ads, both the website and the CTV ads and things like that. There were QR codes on last year's Intuit TurboTax Super Bowl ads, but what we saw is that 20% of the users arriving from the QR code URL were actually bots. So basically, humans do scan the QR code and go to the site, but once that URL is out there, the QR code is basically a visual representation of a URL, right? The URL has some query strings. Once that URL is out, the bots can just copy that and keep replaying it. The reason the bots did that is because last year they had a $1 million sweepstakes. So the bots were basically filling out the sweepstakes form and stuff like that. So that's why we saw bots coming to the URL that was supposed to come from the QR code. Okay. That being
Well,
said,
there is
I
a
still
solution to
highly
that.
encourage the brand lift studies and things like that.
There is a solution to that. We're using a software called Blink, if you're familiar with Blink. And what it basically does is it manages the QR code. So it's tracking the scans that are actually happening as the kind of source of truth, not the traffic on the website.
Um, you have to look at the traffic on the website. Let me actually show you. That's the reason I brought this article up. We have something called attentiveness, and that's measured on the advertiser's landing page. So when a human clicks through on an ad, that means they're curious about something. That means when they get to the site, they're probably going to move their mouse, scroll up and down, and look around the page. Um, we look at the touch events, the scroll events, the click events on the landing page. And say, for example, we can see a whole bunch of people actually, when they click through from the ad and they actually did something on the landing page, that's high attentiveness. So we can also see examples of where we get clicks to the landing page and there's zero interaction, right? That's not normal. So basically the bots will click through so that it registers on the click tracker, but they're not going to waste time doing anything on that landing page, right? Because they want to move on to the next fake click. So when we see, and you might even see that in your own Google Analytics, and that in the form of high bounce rates, right? So they get to the site and they leave right away without doing anything, or very, very low time on site, like less than 1 second. So we have additional data to help you corroborate that. And for the QR code stuff, if they're not scanning or measuring on the landing page, um, there's not enough information for them to know whether it's a bot click or not, or a human click on the QR.
Look, I'm not a technical expert, but Blink, my understanding, I'd love to connect you, is
Sure.
is measuring scans, not traffic. So I'll connect you. It's
Okay.
kind of
Yeah,
complicated.
Yanni, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we can take that offline. Yep,
Yeah.
no problem.
No, this is good. So I was going to, so the last thing for you, Augustine, in the hot seat. First of all, I just appreciate you coming and being willing to share everything that you shared, and then you've been generous with me, and just appreciate you. Can you give a sense to the group? One of the reasons this group exists is to lift each other.
Hmm.
And so, we try to make each other aware of our needs and the things that we offer and what our superpowers are, so that we tend to co-refer within this group. And so what do you need? Like, what are you looking for? What kind of strategic introductions do you need? Can you give us a sense for how you're looking to grow and how people in this group might be able to help you?
Actually, let me put it this way. I don't need anything, but I'm here to help. So what I'm offering is free use of Fou Analytics. So you're
Yep.
welcome to use that on your site. And if you're buying programmatic ads, you should also use the in-ad version to measure the ads themselves.
Yeah.
Because I think if more people understand the problem of fraud and how bots can do a lot of things that people maybe assume they can't, like filling out lead forms and stuff like that, then we've got more people to educate the ad buyers, because we need both sides, right? They need to understand that what they're buying for really cheap CPMs on ad exchanges is not even real, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that is that the other fraud verification vendors, the two public ones, Double Verify and IS, they couldn't catch most of the fraud. So for the last 9 years, they've been telling everyone that fraud has been, or bots have been 1%. The problem that created is that if the legitimate publishers had 1% bots, because there's only 1% bots, and the entirely fake sites that use 100% bots, but only 1% of it was detected by these vendors, right? If the bad guy sites are reported as 1% fraud and the good guy sites are reported at 1% fraud, you can understand why the advertisers, the ad buyers will say, why the heck am I paying $35 CPMs to legitimate publishers when it's the exact same stuff over here for 30 cents, right? So I actually blame these fraud verification vendors because of their inept technology, right? Their failure to detect the bots has actually caused harm to the publishers, because they put the good publishers in the same bucket as the completely fake ones. Right. So what I'm trying to do here is, you have all these charts. You can see the 800 articles I have on LinkedIn. All of it's backed by data, right? It's not just my opinion. I've been doing this for 15 years. So if we can actually selectively show some of this data to the ad buyers and really educate them on what they're currently buying versus what they could be buying from you, the publishers, then I think we're going to be leading this revolution back to quality media.
Bro, I just asked you what we can do for you, and you basically just said justice is my reward. That's basically what you said. Like
Yeah.
you're basically Batman up in here, like the Cape Vigilante. like out here to.
Well, it's my privilege to work with all of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, it's real, dude. It's real. So well, let me just I'm gonna scoot in on that a little bit because those two other groups that you just referred to that are reporting the 1%, right? Those are the people that you tend to replace. Yes.
Yes.
And so if anybody becomes aware of situations where people are using those vendors, which you said most of these large organizations are,
Yeah.
those would be conversations you would want to have. Yes.
Yeah, if the advertiser's using them and they're saying, "Oh, well, Double Verify just told me it's 1% fraud." Well, let's go take a look at it. Let's go take a closer look because it's not. So
Right.
yes, those would be, yeah, the advertisers would be the ones that ultimately could benefit from seeing the truth here.
Right. And
And
you're
let me throw out a business idea for you that you didn't ask for. So I think one thing that, to your point, like how do we convince advertisers that our traffic's better? Like that is a very difficult thing to sell. Like it's very hard to sell. But one thing that's interesting is if we had a Fou Analytics scorecard dashboard that we could tell our customers, hey, listen, don't buy anything without adding this
Yep.
Yeah, you're
thing.
welcome to do that. That's exactly what we're doing. So you see these 10 charts right here?
Yeah,
These are 10 good publishers. That's what a good
yeah,
publisher looks like.
yeah,
Okay. And then if you compare that to the MFA sites, right, with the crappy stuff that they're buying, it's night and day, right? Blue means good, red means bad. So the MFA sites are what they're buying in programmatic, and the good publisher sites are what they would be getting if they're buying from you.
that's
So
good.
just like Kenny's site, you're welcome to put my tag on your site, and you're welcome to screenshot from the Fou Analytics dashboard and use that in your sales materials.
John, I think what you're doing though is you're saying that there's that
Yeah,
Augustine has an opportunity for an offering that's specific to media.
yeah. What I mean by that, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that like for this client, right, this big client I have that we're doing a lot of stuff with, they're also buying a ton through a digital agency.
Yeah.
And so, but what we get to do, because we're doing all this other reporting, is we produce a report for them that
Yes.
shows how we're doing, but also because we're doing link management, we're showing results from YouTube and we're showing you results from Meta,
Yes.
their advertising results. And so if we own the relationship with the client and we put your pixel on all of their buys,
Yes.
then it's a monthly service that we're providing to
Yes.
customers that says, hey, some of these buys you're buying over here, just FYI, are red, they suck.
Yep.
But we're not actually
100%.
we're not making the buy, they're doing it on their own.
Yeah, but you can actually even charge for your analytics
Yeah,
reporting. So
yeah.
basically, I'm a one-person company. I don't intend to hire anybody. So I do work with agencies. So there's one called Search Discovery in Atlanta, and they're a website analytics focused agency. So they help large advertisers with their Google Analytics and Adobe. So what they've recently done is they've adopted Fou Analytics. I've trained them on Fou Analytics. So they started by adding Fou Analytics to the websites, but then we also noticed that some of these large advertisers are also buying programmatic ads. So then we say, oh, well, we're seeing a lot of bot clicks come through. Do you also want to measure the ads? So then they put the in ad tag. So then we measure the ads and basically help them optimize. So in that case, I don't need to have a direct relationship with the customer. I'm just selling the annual subscriptions to the platform. And so you will have the direct relationship with the client, and you're not only educating them, but actually hands-on keyboard helping them optimize the campaigns so that they're wasting less money on bots. So by all means, let's do that as well.
So cool, man. Augustine, man, love the energy you brought today.
Thank you.
You're just the caped vigilante, bro. That's what you are, man. And
Thank
we
you.
love it. So I'm gonna, as we're getting to a close, I like to leave a little bit of time for needs and wants, or needs and offers. Before I do that, Jake, so I do also want to be making the group aware of what's happening as a result of this group. So this brain trust has become, one of the highlights for me, of the things that I get to do in a given month. And the effectiveness that's coming out of this group kind of speaks for itself. And so one of the initiatives that's been born out of this group is a partnership between Jacob Fogg, Jake, and then David LaFontaine. and they've shared about this. I've actually done an interview about this that I'll share. I'll share the link in the chat. First, I'm gonna share the link to my interview with John Garrett, because he talked a little bit about his business model. So if you want to learn more about what he's doing, here's an interview I did with John Garrett. And then secondarily, I'll throw one in about the new initiative for Jake. Jake, do you want to give us a 3 or 4 minute update on what's happening in your initiative, and just give us a summary of it first, and then tell us what stage it's in?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, David and I are building a business dedicated to offering services to publishers at a very high level. So our initial offering is centered around SEO for publishers. So really digging into how do we as publishers become experts for publishing, and then how do we translate that into a product offering to help industry, not just lift our individual people, but lift the industry when it comes to SEO, so we can start beating out these really bad actors who are stealing content and looking like garbage. So that's a big part of our initial offering. Our ultimate goal is to really, like I've launched my company, Copper Press, as a fractional CTO service. So helping publications focus on their technology, create strategies around it, create roadmaps to improving the technology and how it applies to their overall vision. And one of the things we realized is there's a big need for that level of service across the board. So, David's specialty is understanding data and turning the data into action based on what he learns about his users. And so he and I just have this organic meshing between the two of us. And then, we actually ended up getting into a conversation with Carol, who really, she's a fractional chief officer. She's systems and organizing business side of the organization. And man, I feel that same synergy with Carol. And so, ultimately our goal would be to become a fractional service offering for publishers, and bringing in partners who are truly experts in their craft, and being able to help an individual publisher who can't afford a single C-level employee be able to have a team of employees that are helping to back operation. So I don't know. Right now we're ready to launch. We're looking for our first beta client to launch with the SEO offering, which is really exciting. I know David, he couldn't come today. He's actually in Barcelona at a really big international publishers conference. And so actively looking for our beta test client. We've got several people who are in leads, or not, great candidates for that. And then we're ready to launch. So super exciting. We're moving. It's moving a lot quicker than I really anticipated. So
thanks a lot, Jake. And then I did put the link to my interview of you and David into the chat. So if anybody wants to see more about the initiative, you can see it there. We're probably going to need to do a refresher and update on that, Jake, as it evolves. But I want to put out to everybody here. So I do want to make sure that everybody who's coming to the calls is getting interviewed by me, because that's a part of the service of this organization, is to draw out the unique niche superpower of each of you, right? And so what you're doing in the world and who you want to attract to yourself, the Media Data Collaborative is an advocate of that. And so I've gotten John Garrett, I've gotten Greg Crable, I've gotten Jacob, and I've gotten David. Carol, I still need you. Augustine, I'm going to interview you. Jason, I need to get you on the calendar and get you in front of people. Andy, and then Jim also. And then Blair's gone, but Blair, if you look at the recording, I need to get you too. So I'd like to do that. But also, if you end up doing a partnership or any kind of collaboration within this group, I want to interview you about that, right? So I want to bring those stories forefront also, because again, then people can know what you're doing and people can start to co-refer, and the rising tide lifts all ships. So anyway, that's my need, or my want is, I'm gonna throw my calendar link in here, calendly.com/Johnny Levy. And so if I have not interviewed you, please grab a time. If you don't, that's fine. I'm just going to keep after you, and it'll happen. But grab a time with me so I can bring your gift to the world. Anybody else have any needs or offers? So needs or offers in the last 6 minutes that we have that you want people to be aware of. Take a risk and get it out there.
Hey, I'm just going to echo what Jacob said. I had a great meeting with Jacob and David, and I have clients of mine on the that I think will be great beta test sites for Jacob and David, and doing this fractional COO work. I can't be all things to all people, but I can identify needs and refer. And this is an absolute great group to find those within. And I was just down at John in your neck of the woods last few days at ISOJ, and that was really great. I don't know if you were there.
No, I had some teammates there, but I wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really, really great conference. And then also, James, last month you mentioned that you were involved with SCORE. And last night I was in a meeting where I met the individual who's a regional director out of Alabama for SCORE. And so I'd like to talk to you, about some of what you do there. So
Okay.
anyway, it's a great group, and I think the referrals and the synergies, and if anybody knows media organizations that I guess the way I see it is there's a lot of great journalists out there who are really terrible business people. And if I can help them right that ship, that's my passion.
Yes, thank you for putting that out there, because you're the go-to person for that, right? Like you will help them build a sustainable business model around their gift. That's what you do. Okay, cool. I have another question for you, Carol, but I'm gonna if anybody else, I don't want to take the stage from anybody else that has a need or an offer. All right, I'm going to take the stage then. So Carol, in your work, and the deep consulting that you're doing, are there particular services that you're seeing that that your clients are having a hard time finding a trusted vendor within? Is there any themes that are coming up for you? Because that helps me figure out who I need to bring into the group.
Sure. I mean, I think some of the gaps were really addressed today. What Augustine is doing, what Jacob does. The one thing that seems to be a recurring theme, and I don't know, welcome any input on it, is just a real lack of redundancy. So you have folks in these news organizations, and if something happens to one of them, there's nobody to step in and do that role. And so if there's if somebody gets hit by a bus, right? Or there's a natural disaster, there's not redundancy, there's not backup, there's not process. And again, the journalist and the publisher is thinking about how do we serve our community by providing the best and highest quality news, at least the independent publishers, right, that I work with. So their focus is on that. Their focus is not on the back end or the office. And if there's a misstep or a disaster, then they certainly can't sustain the good journalism that they're doing. So that's what I notice a lot of, is just a utter lack of, a lot of them don't have operations manuals. They don't know, some of the new ones don't know how to get their E&O insurance or their liability insurance and things like that. So just helping them get that in order, and not just saying this is what you need to do. They all know what they need to do. They don't have the capacity to do it, or somebody to hold their hand through it and just kind of do it for them, and then check in with them on a regular basis and see what's changed, and are you updating your processes as you grow, as you shrink, or as your staff changes? How are you constantly updating your processes?
All right, I'll check in with you every once in a while about that question. And for people that are in deep, a lot of times you'll see certain types of services that are needed, and it's like, well, we just don't know a good person that we can trust. Because I think that's huge about this group, is like integrity and trust. Like, people that I know, if I send somebody to you, you're going to take good care of them because of the just the ethos of this group. So I'm gonna end with Karai. I'm gonna give you the last word, man. I want to hear what your fresh eyes and your fresh ears Saul, or what stuck out to you from the time that you got to spend with us today? Can I put you on the spot? You're on mute still. Okay.
Yeah, can you repeat that? You cut out just right as you were asking the question.
I'd love to know what stuck out to you, or what you learned or heard in your time with us today.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, I think the main discussion revolving around kind of the bots, like I had no idea that there was just such a rampant problem, on the internet, and advertisers are using statistics to kind of manage their ad spend, and like most of that, or from what I understood, most of that is like just fake clicks
Yeah.
and fake engagement. I had no idea it was such a huge issue. I knew that there were bots and there was that kind of thing, but I didn't know it was making up, sounds like, most of, or a large portion of engagement online.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And so we're at time. So, it's been amazing spending the time with everybody today. Again, Augustine, thank you so much for bringing the fire today. And
Thank you.
and we'll see you all in a month.
All right. Good to see all of you.
Take it easy, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.